So a few years ago, an employee came to me to say, Carla, I think I'm going to apply for another position. She said, I enjoy working here, but I really want to get close to my parents. They were aging, and she wanted to be able to be in a position to take care of them. Now, we were in the DC area, and her family, her parents lived in the Midwest. So I said, I understand. She was a fabulous employee, very quiet, but just an awesome employee. She performed like at a 10th level. So yeah, I just thought, wow, I don't want to lose her, but it is what it is. She needs to take care of her parents. And then months later, it had to be about 7 or 8 months later, she said, Carla, I accepted a position. I said, great. I'm going to call her Linda. I said, great, Linda. And she said, you know what? This was a hard situation that I was in. I said, well, what happened? She said, I applied for 100 positions. I was only asked to be interviewed 20 times, and I was only offered one position, one out of 100 applications. Thought, wow, but you got the job. She said, yeah, and I'm excited to be able to be there for my parents. So, what's the point of the story? Never give up, people. 1%, she was able to move to the Midwest to take care of her parents. Never give up. And I'm going to tell you someone who never gives up. I call her the Marine, Miss Valynn Westfall. So, today, folks, welcome to Lead Like You Mean It, people. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Valynn. Today's conversation is about leadership during change, not just about system change, but people change. And we're talking about what it really takes to lead transformation with integrity, boundaries, and courage. Valynn, I met her years ago during a major change. She is a recently retired senior civilian servant and U.S. Marine Corps veteran. No, it's like the Marines, who spent decades leading large-scale transformation efforts within the Department of Navy. As operation manager for financial management system, Valynn helped modernize and consolidate legacy financial systems into Navy ERP. Boy, do I remember that. All the while centering the human side of change, trust building, and high-performing teams. She brings a powerful perspective on leadership, resilience, and what it truly takes to lead transformation at scale. Valynn, welcome to Lead Like You Mean It, people.
Thanks for having me, Carla.
Thank you so much. Before we get into our questions, I saw you, as I mentioned earlier, I saw you on Facebook. And as I said earlier, also, when I saw that bungee jump, I watched it twice. This is how loud I was. Go, Valynn! I'm screaming into my phone because I thought it was great. Before we talk about anything regarding what you accomplished in your career, please share about that bungee jump and where it was.
Yeah, so I was in New Zealand,
Oh,
and Queensland is the area that we were in. So my husband and I both took the DRP, and so it was great. And we had this planned. We were going to be going with other veterans. Um, so we got there, and it was one of the last stops before we went to Australia. And a couple days before, they were like, the ladies doing the tour, we had two buses, and she was like, oh yeah, we got the bungee jump coming up, and we're looking for a few more people. And she's just generically, she's not talking to me, she's just generically talking to everybody.
yeah, yeah.
And we just gonna keep reminding people till we get it. And so I was sitting there on the bus next to my husband, of course, and I was like listening to some of the ladies at coffee talking about the bungee jump, that they wish they could do it because they didn't feel like they were healthy, or they were worried about their back or their hip or whatever, just the whole thing. And so I look at my husband and I go, hey babe, I think I'm going to have to do this. And he's like, go ahead, Valynn. He's also a retired Marine. And the clincher was when they said that it was the first place in the world that ever had a bungee jump. So
Wow.
it was off that same bridge that, you know, people had gone off. So I had decided the day before that I would do it. And then, of course, getting there that day, heart beating, walking there, they had some long thing of sign. I didn't read a word of it. I just signed it. I like scrolled all the way down and signed it. Of course, one of the ladies, it took her 45 minutes. I was like, oh, geez, you know, you going to do it or not? I don't know what to say about that. So I was ready to go. And so I just waited my turn, and there was an American who was working that day, and she was, I said, you have any pointers? So they had like wrapped a towel around your ankles, and then they had a thing around your waist. So I mean, it was like extra secure. And she said, well, when you get ready to go, you know, look at the camera, and then look at the camera on the side, and all the people that you're with will see you and everything, and wave, whatever. And she just said, do a swan dive. You want your head to go first. So I listened to instructions, and I did exactly what she said. I was a lifeguard and a swimming instructor before I came in the Marine Corps. So I was like, I can do a swan dive. So that's what I did. And then all the people that I was traveling, it was 3 of us girls that jumped that day. And we got some pictures together and everything. So it was just a lot. It was definitely memorable. Watching it myself, I was like, you can kind of feel like she's literally going over the edge.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the one question they asked me, I thought was kind of interesting. It was like, because it, you know, it was cold. Because in May, it's like their winter. They're getting ready to go into the winter. Do you want you want your head to touch the water? It's like, yeah, that's okay. I'm good. I just want to do the jump. So I didn't get baptized again or anything in the water. So I was good. But
Wow.
that was the bungee jump. And then they just, I was more worried about how I was going to get into this flotation boat, but they had like a PVC pipe or something coming down, and that, you know, they could guide you into the boat, and then they just unhooked you. So anyways, and then the hike back up to where everybody was, that was probably longer than the jump itself, but it was good though. It was memorable, and I'm sure I'll never forget it.
Yeah, because I remember seeing a video. I said, well, how is she going to return? And I think they did show a boat, and I said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. My head touching the water. I think that would have been a tad bit too much.
That's what I thought. I was like, oh, that's okay. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I probably would have thought other things, but I just thought that kudos to you. I just thought that was fantastic. And none of the
Thank
guys
you.
went.
Nope. There were no men that ventured out. And my husband, you know, said, well, somebody had to stay behind to make sure if something happened to her, you know. I was like, yeah, okay.
That's funny. Well, again, kudos to you.
Thanks.
Kudos to you. So let me ask you a question. So you and I first met you when we were going through the Navy ERP, and we're going to talk a little bit about from a leadership perspective. It's not just the system transformation, even though that was the reason, the purpose.
Yeah.
But the reason why I enjoyed working with you, because you are a people person. So I'm going to ask you the first question. I'm going to try to stick to these questions today. Let's see if it works. I guarantee nothing. Okay. You led massive financial and IT transformation efforts across the Navy, high stakes, high complexity, and high visibility. From your experience, what do leaders often underestimate about leading large-scale change?
So people, real people. I think a lot of them want to, but they get so sucked into the statistics and numbers, and sometimes that just gets drawn out. The good thing, like when I met you, I had already done one of these huge things at the Navy Systems Command, NAVC, at the Navy Yard. And back then in 2009, 2010, 2011, I mean, we had phone calls like 2 or 3 times a day, and we weren't seeing anybody. But that transformation set me up for what was to come to get the rest of the Navy in the box. And I had, it was like an 8-year lull there. So people went and did different things. Like Valynn was on the call, I think last month. So him and I had worked together when we were at NAVC, and then, people went and carried out their lives or whatever they were, the next steps in their journey. And then when this came back up that we're going to finish the Navy, it was like, bring the band back together,
Wow.
And so a lot of the familiar faces came out of retirement or as contractors or government people kind of found their way back, which is what I kind of did. I really loved it the first time around. So I wanted to be part of the again, and a lot of that had to do with the people. A lot of those folks are my friends, just like in the Marine Corps. You go to war together. Your bond is you've done something really hard together, and it's like not something you'll ever forget. And when you have that kind of success, you think you can repeat it easily, but it's not. It's harder because it's different people, different dynamics, different time in, politics, life, whatever. But I always have my dad. My dad always said to me, be aware of what's going around you, and that has always stuck with me. Be aware of the people. Be aware, and even through life, like who's the wallflower? Who's the person who used to talk on the phone and now is silent? I need to reach out to that person and find out what is going on. So I intentionally try to be in tune with what is going on with the people. And that means you have to invest yourself in like getting to know them. Finding some common ground, whether it's the Packers or, something with their children or whatever. The connection really matters. And then there's some empathy that I think, understanding. And then there's some things that get hard, right? It's like, hey, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you want to try something different. It's not what they expected. So it's almost just having an honest conversation. I remember doing that, with our Marines growing up, as a young Marine. I put in the chat the Marine Corps leadership principles, like know yourself, so this is where I was grounded after I, graduated from high school. So that all resonated with me, and I've carried those core values, if you will, with me through my whole life.
So now that you mentioned that, can you read off?
Sure. So know yourself and seek self-improvement. That's like that is like core.
Yeah.
Be technically and tactically proficient. Know your people and look out for their welfare. And that's like really paying attention to people when they're not having a good day. Keep your personnel informed, communication. Set the example. Ensure the task is understood, supervised, and accomplished. That to me is more of a partnership. Train your Marines and sailors as a team. Make sound and timely decisions. Develop a sense of responsibility among your subordinates. Employ your command within its capabilities and seek responsibility and take responsibility. When you're wrong, say you're wrong. Even if you're not wrong, sometimes you just need to say you're wrong. Tell you a little story. Here we are.
Sure.
I've got 1,000 people on this phone call. Something didn't go well. The very first night, I remember getting a phone call like 11 o'clock, and people were so upset that the project structures did not get loaded correctly because that was the very first thing. So people were pretty irate about it. It was like a couple days went by, and I was like, okay, this isn't going away. It doesn't matter. No one can explain this away. It happened. We'll try to do better. So it was fuming up on the call, and I literally put my head down and I put my face toward the speakerphone in the center of the table. And I said, hey, everybody, this is Valynn. I didn't normally talk, actually. I usually let my team do all the talking. I said, this is Valynn. I just want you to know, I am hearing you loud and clear. I am sorry this happened. I am going to figure out a way in this schedule that we can try to do this again. And then everything was quiet. And nothing, it didn't matter. I just apologized and said I was going to try to figure out a way. Well, I did figure out a way. There was a time and space that we got done a little earlier, and there was about 3 weeks. And I talked with the folks, the IT people of ERP at the time, and I was like, I really need this. I need to build the confidence before we go in, because the first thing didn't work right out of the gate. So we did it, and it was successful. But a lot of people wouldn't have pushed for that. They would have just said, yeah, moving on.
Yeah.
So I was pretty proud of myself for actually sticking to my guns and then delivering. And people felt it gave us momentum, a jumping off point as we were getting ready to go into like the last 3 months. It was really important.
Yeah, because they felt seen. I mean, it's not just, okay, we're doing this project, but then I also have other things to do. This is not the only thing that I'm responsible for. And I have to report to my leadership what's going on. And if there's something not out there that's I should have received, but I didn't, now I've got to take all this with my team. It's so much that goes on. I would say that from my side, so much that goes on the other side or the user side that headquarters may not acknowledge. But the fact that you acknowledged it, I can tell you, I would have felt seen, heard, and then you followed it up with an action that, oh, she really stood behind her word. So now I'm trusting Valynn, not so much her position, but I'm trusting Valynn, build confidence.
And when I talk with leadership, I just said, this is not going to affect the schedule. I just said, you won't even notice it. What you're going to notice is goodness that's going to come out of it, because it's going to go well. And I was just, so I didn't get any pushback from leaders, like, whatever you think. I was just like, oh, it was, so it was great to have support of leadership too. I mean, they could have very easily said, we're not going to waste our time, money, or effort. Even if we have time, we're not going to waste it. We're going to just do other things with it. So I was glad they heard me. And I think the warfare centers, all those sites had like site leads. And so this kind of bubbled up on another end where they were like, it's not just Valynn making this up.
So that's fantastic. It is something, again, from my experience, it's something when someone from headquarters actually sees that this means something to whatever. I mean, I worked for headquarters, but it wasn't at the headquarters at your level. But it's something when we can actually work with someone who's a people person, even though we may not be people, what is the word, people persons or whatever, ourselves. We just may have, non-emotional, because it is the military, on the Navy side. But it's something simply I can pass on, that we were heard, and then now I can see something in action. It was executed. So from my side, even though I don't work there anymore, thank you. It means a lot. But tell me about the Marines. And before that, I've got to tell you this. When I first started working at the Pentagon, I was I was like 35 or something. And as I'm walking through the halls of the Pentagon, I started noticing the differences in the services. The Marines were the only ones to speak to me. They didn't know me, but they will walk down the halls, those long corridors, and they would say, "Good morning, ma'am." Well, first I felt offended, because I'm like, look, I'm only 35. What are you doing calling me ma'am? I didn't say that, but I'm thinking, why would they call me ma'am? But I didn't know it was just a sign of respect. It took me months, because I thought, as I approached a Marine, Don't call me ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you today, ma'am? And then it was like, it dawned on me, oh, they're just showing respect. That's what they're trained to do. And then I just fell in love with the Marines. You guys just have a different culture. A far different culture. I'm not demeaning the other services, but I know the Marines, and that's the funny thing. I know the Marines are under the Navy, but you all don't consider that you're under.
True.
But you just have a different culture and you show respect to people. And I always had this little thing. I said, oh, I love me some Marines. But talk to me about, what did you learn as a um, as a member of the Marines?
So I came in right after high school and went to boot camp. I chose the Marine Corps. Funny reasons, actually. Maybe not. I was a terrible test taker, and the Marines don't have tests like the other services.
Mm.
It's all performance based. So
Interesting. I
I
didn't know that.
and I was a swimming instructor. I actually thought I was going to be able to like teach Marines how to swim, which
Mhm.
I did, but I had to like convince. I would have to take some of my own time to do that, but I ended up like training like about 50 Marines when I was stationed at Camp Pendleton. But a boot camp, I mean, just the discipline, a lot of, you're always in it together. And
Mm.
it was like if one person messed up, it's like everybody's doing push-ups. It's just like they
Mhm.
break you down and then they build you back up as a team. Um, and that's the way it was most of the time. And so I think came in '82, and that's when they really opened up more jobs for women.
Mhm.
The jobs mostly were just office jobs, or I think it was supply kind of a thing, not like loading bombs to aircraft, which was
Right.
like ordnance and like the really cool thing. But I didn't go that route. So, anyways, and then going to the rifle range, that really builds your confidence. When in boot camp, it wasn't required, and then it was required, I think, like 85, 86. And I had a great instructor. I had shot a gun when I was with my dad, like deer hunting, but I was like landed on my butt because it was like a big gun. And so I was like, I think I had a bruise on my shoulder, and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I don't know if I was too interested in it. But anyways, I had a great instructor, and I got expert, and I just loved everything about. So the one thing about the Marine Corps is that you could be mud on the ground in mud, shooting weapons, just
Mhm.
being dirty and grungy. And that night you could be like dressing up for the Marine Corps ball.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, it's like, where else is you could have a job like that? And so I went through my first tour, and then I re-enlisted, and I wasn't a recruiter, but I was with them on recruiting duty, and that was in Nashville. Anyways, I really I learned and respected. I challenged a lot of things. It's like, why do we do it this way? Why do you do it this way? And so I've always been curious and challenged things. When I was a corporal, we had dial-up modems, and we were
Mhm.
sending transactions to Atlanta at the time, and to be put into the system so people could get paid.
Yeah.
And um, I wrote this whole like 2-page thing about like how we could do it better. They actually replied to me. And it was about 2 years later, like after I had left, that they had figured out what I was talking about. And so they had made the change, because
Mhm.
it would have been, instead of like on a month, waiting a month for people to like get paid, which is kind of like I would joke about the Navy, not real timely on getting people paid, but we could do it like every 2 weeks. So it actually did end up happening. Anyway, so I've always
Oh, cool.
challenged regulations. Why do we do things the way we do?
Mhm.
I remember challenging. We had reserve come on active duty. The guy was from DC. He could speak Farsi. He ends up in Camp Lejeune, but he can't bring his family with him. But he's on active duty now. So how do you pay for his housing allowance up in
Uh-huh.
DC? Well, there were no provisions for that.
Wow.
And we ended up doing something creative. And then we ended up changing the regulation, and actually it was changed in laws to allow that, like lessons learned to, you know, be put into law so that people could get paid without anything. Again, one of the biggest things probably, I worked on this. When you talk, there was one question you had about failure. I'll just go ahead and talk about it. I have been prevented from failing, actually, because I had great leaders. I don't know if I ever felt like I was really struggling with failing, but there was one time where perfection almost got in my way and caused failure. Perfection.
Wow.
There was this 1,000-page document, and it was every transaction that the Marine Corps has in one regulation, one policy, 1,000 pages. And they had it alphabetically from the data element. So you wouldn't find date of birth. You would find birth date. You would never find date of birth. It would be birth date. That's just an example. It drove everybody crazy because nobody knew. It didn't make any sense. It didn't go like a normal person would think. Anyways, we did the cradle to grave thing and reorganized that. And I had a lot of help. And it was about a year. And as the changes to the system were coming into play, you had to keep up with that. So it was like, if you didn't just draw a chalk line, it was never going to get released and never going to help a Marine to pay people correctly. And so my boss had called me into the office, and he's like, I know it's not perfect, and it's never going to be perfect, Valynn.
Tell me about it.
Are you going to be okay with that? I think you just need to release it. It looks good to me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to be okay with not being perfect. Let's roll. And so we did, and it was fine. And then I basically put a disclaimer on. If you see anything in here that's incorrect or is not clear, this is where you email. We had some generic thing back then too. Anyway, it was a great learning experience for me about perfection. That, you know, when they talk about like 80-20 and, you know, when you go into ERP, gentleman that we both worked with before he retired, he was like, so now what? We're all just going to say it's perfect now and just think everything's good to go? Yeah, no, but it's where we are, and we'll just keep making it better.
Yeah,
as
but
we keep learning. So
it's something that you say about curiosity. You didn't fail because of the leaders. You had outstanding leaders. They provided support. That's pretty phenomenal, because you would think that throughout someone's career, I've failed, but you actually had a leader who said, look, you need to be able to accept this. He spoke to you at your level. You need to be able to accept this. This is where you are. We're not going to get to perfection. Are you okay with that? That's support that sometimes we never receive, but to hear a leader to be able to care enough to say, hey, Valynn, this is where we are. I mean, really,
I remember, I even remember one time I had a Lance Corporal, and I was a driver, man. These people were on the clock. I mean, we were, you know, I was just like always driving. What are we going to do next? What are we going to do after that? You know, and it's like, oh, with 2 steps, you know, like chess, you know, 2 or 3 steps down the road, what are we going to do? And I remember, I didn't even, like, I don't know, the captain at the company office, he respected me, and he appreciated the hard work, that ethic that I had. And he just like, yeah, I think I was a sergeant at the time. He pulled me aside, and he was talking about the Lance Corporal that was working for me. And he's like, I know you're driving, but sometimes these young kids, these young guys need to blow off some steam. And me, coming from an athletic family, totally got it immediately. And I was like, thanks, sir, appreciate it. And at that point, it was like the guy is going out playing basketball. And what happened? He worked twice as hard for me.
Wow.
I mean, that was like great great
Wow.
insight that I was just like, but you got to be open to stuff like that too.
Yeah.
You can't,
Yes.
oh, sir, I did it. No, it's like, no, it's like, got it.
Yeah.
People have
Yeah.
lives, and you're coming in at 4:30 in the morning to go PT and all this kind of stuff, and then working a long day and then keep on working. And this was like, during the Gulf War type stuff, the first Gulf War. So tension was already high. So people just, you need to be mindful. It's like taking care of your people, really taking care of your
Yes.
people.
Absolutely.
And what they might not see what they need. And you might be like, you've been working really hard. Why don't you take tomorrow off and spend it with your family and kind of like
Yes.
provide that kind of support that it's okay to do that.
Yeah. Because
There was this one guy that got shunned.
Why?
He did not get to go to the Gulf War, and he was with more of a combative type, like really a combat type unit. I think it was like Angleco and stuff like that. But he was an admin guy, and so everybody went to the Gulf War except for him. Like he didn't get to go. But we have proficiency in conduct marks, and so it was like, this is where it's like the power of knowing policy or regulations and what it can do for you. So this guy was getting ready to get discharged, but he didn't have a 4.0, and you have to have that if you want to get an honorable discharge from the Marine Corps. And he wasn't going to be able to reenlist.
But wait a minute. What's the 4.0?
That is a proficiency mark or conduct mark, which it's almost like a fitness report, but for the corporals and below, they just get these numerical numbers. They don't get like a write-up or anything like that. Gotcha. So this guy worked so hard. And one of the things I learned from another leader was, we are not just making good Marines. We are making Marines for the after Marine Corps, like when you go out in the civilian world.
Yes.
To be good citizens. And I was like, oh, I got to figure out. So I went through the regulations about these markings. Come to find out, if you give somebody a different job every 30 days, you can get them another mark.
Oh, wow.
So for 6 months, he got marks, and he ended up with like a 4.3 and a 4.1, so he could get an honorable discharge. Wow. So I feel like I changed this person's life.
Yes.
Because we did the right thing.
Yes.
But if somebody would have just kept on, just like, go figure it out, whatever, he would not have the opportunities that he had when he left back then. And so those are the, it's like, hey, and nobody, it's like, do the right thing. If you could figure out where some of these nuances are, then you could do the right thing. So I always felt proud of doing, making things right. Yeah. And when there was a wrong done.
Yeah. But that's fabulous. That actually goes back to, I always tell people, I learned my mantra from one of my employees. If you take care of your people will take care of your mission. Nancy DRC told me that years ago. She said she learned it from her director. And I said, that is my mantra. If you take care of your people will take care of your mission. And it's the same thing when you mentioned about, they need to blow off steam. I mean, they went and play basketball. You took care of them. Oh, we've got Valyn's back. No problem. They supported you along the way. It makes a difference. And when you invested in that young gentleman, that was just fantastic for his life. You can't tell me he didn't think, wow, somebody's actually looking out for me instead of I'm just here and, in the Department of Navy or just the DOD itself. And I'm just here, I'm solo, but somebody actually looked out for me. And the other thing, when you mentioned about, you're not just making great Marines, you're building someone's character for their entire life, how they're going to conduct themselves when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and so forth. Because I've seen how you guys conduct yourself afterwards. I told you, I love Marines. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, Valynn, we're at the end of our time. What did I ask? One question. I don't think I told you. Maybe one question. Let me ask you one last question before we end. When you look back on your career, military and civilian, what do you hope people say about you and how you led during times of uncertainty and transformation?
Transparency, honesty. People, even now, have come back to me. I was wishing people like Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. They're like, things aren't the same without you.
Okay.
And it's just somebody taking the time, I think, really to put an ear, to give people an ear to
Mhm.
use. And if there's opportunities to influence things, it's almost like being a coach, right?
Yeah,
Without
yeah.
having like a real coach hat on, I guess. I used to walk around with the clipboard always because my dad was a coach. And I knew if I had this clipboard, I was going to be wiser. And I just love a clipboard. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel grounded. But I, I feel like what I would like, I guess, to think is that people thought I really got it, and
Mhm.
that being a calm, honest listener, that people who serve matter. Um, and even today, like I was saying, my friends and colleagues, we did hard things together.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't, and I never felt like the boss. I mean, some people's like, yes, boss, or whatever, some people, but I mean, I just took that as respect too, right? Kind of like, yes, ma'am, kind of a thing. But I feel that would be, a legacy that not many people could leave behind, I think.
Mm.
It's not about the numbers. Sometimes numbers can't be counted, honestly.
Yeah.
How do you measure certain things? You people, where they say ERP, early retirement program. When I first came on, it's like people were dropping like flies because they didn't want to do a change, and be like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
why? What's up with that? I mean, I need some people with have, some of this depth here. But so we'd just be having a conversation. It's like, what are you afraid about? What is really concerning you? Why do you think we can't take this leap? All the training is being provided.
Mhm.
I know it's new and different, but these numbers, just going to go in another box instead of the box you kept on putting them in, kind of a thing. I don't want to dummy it down, but I mean, sometimes people just need to I don't know why I was making such a big deal about it. I think I'm ready to give it a try.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
that's kind of what I think, a calming, rational, reasonable type person who just truly cares about the mission, obviously, and will
mhm.
drive to it, but also being mindful of the people
Yeah.
and what they need, and what will make them, like you said, like one thing could change the whole thing. There was a
Mhm.
outburst on a phone call, and I was like, oh my God, they lost it. I can't have that in front of 1,000 people. So I
Mhm.
came up with an open mic call before that call, so people could come to that meeting. It wasn't really a meeting, it was an open
Mhm.
mic. Call in if you got a beef, or if you're freaking out, or somebody's ticked you off. I can't have you talk like that on the big call. I need you to come to this
Wow. I
call.
should have been on that call, Valynn.
So I would try to like have, you know, what can I do
Yeah.
to help relieve this pressure point, so that people feel like they have a safe place to come. No
Mhm.
judgment.
Well, I tell you what, I know from when we worked together and you were leading the effort, you always came across that we mattered, that I mattered. So I always appreciate that. And I always remember that. I didn't feel that we were just supposed to follow it because, that's the direction from headquarters. That's the direction from ASN. But I actually felt like, oh, okay, I can reach out to her. I can have a real conversation. And as somebody who's just trying to say something to impress their leaders, or just try to say something to get me off the phone. So I always appreciated just the conversation. And then at times you were just yourself. Always appreciated that. It meant a lot. You don't know how much it meant. So I appreciate your efforts. Thank you for being a guest on Lead Like You Mean It, people. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Carla.
Thank you. So today's conversation reminds us that leadership isn't just about systems, strategy, or success. It's about people, boundaries, and the willingness to learn from failure while still moving forward. Thank you for joining us on Lead Like You Mean It, people. Join us every second and fourth Wednesday at noon Eastern Time for bold, honest conversations about leadership and how to lead with clarity, courage, and care. And I also want to invite you all to the Confident Leader Summit. It is a 3-day virtual experience happening February 18th through the 20th. I'm hosting it with Ash Rowe, and it's to help you lead with confidence, communicate with authority, and stop being overlooked. Register using the link in the chat, or you can simply scan the QR code on the screen. I'll be glad to see you all there. Until next time, lead like you mean it, people. Have a great day.